Today we are making a Falstaff Float. You can't really see that behind these right now. I wanted to call it a float staff, but I didn't think enough people would get the pun right away. It's going to be unnecessarily decadent, but also way too much, way too many things at one time, and I'm gonna have a good time. Also, as you can see, I'm not wearing my regular apron today because I have a hoodie. I have a little Bard Brunch hoodie. It's embroidered. It's very nice. It's very cute. I like it. Also, for some of you who have seen our Instagram, you will have noticed that I got a special little this thing. Oh my God, she's so cute. She's me. She's me as Shakespeare. Thank you to Termy Royal for this amazing hand-painted portrait. That's so cute. Speaking of hand-painted portraits, though, as you have noticed, there's two glasses here today when they usually just make something for me. Well, today is our tech Chris's birthday! Yay! Chris, I'm gonna be really mean and make you come on camera to open your present. I wrapped it so beautifully.
You worked so hard.
I worked so hard. I sweated and slaved over this. Come on camera.
Come on camera.
This is Chris. It's her birthday. Yay!
I'm even with my scissors.
With your scissors.
This is taking valuable time.
Taking valuable time. All right, yeah. And then you just pull it out. Pull it out.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Okay.
It's her!
It's me. Let me get a close up.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! That's insanity.
Little close up for everyone at home. This is also from Termy Royal. That's Chris, as you can tell from the side by side. It was actually based on one of her Hippolyta photos from one of the last times she was in A Midsummer Night's Dream. But look at that! Look at that! She's all fancy! I'm all fancy. You're all fancy! Now, before we get into our interview with Gorilla Rep Theater, I'm super excited for their recent production, their film production actually of Macbeth. We are going to make a cocktail that will kill us both. And since it is Chris's birthday, she's also going to run the show a little bit drunk after I hand her one of these. All right, so since a lot of you were very happy about the ice cream in last week's cocktail, we're going to go for the Ben & Jerry's ice cream again. Oh, it's so fancy, right? All right, I'm just going to use a tablespoon this time, a little bigger than my little teaspoon from last time, just to get a little more globs in there because, fun fact, we don't have a mixer. The ice cream is the mixer. Happy birthday! Yes, thank you. Grandma. All right, scooping this out. So yeah, as I said, we don't have a mixer this time. So our mixer is going to kind of be our ice cream. We are going full Falstaff in character today. I'm going to be mine because I licked it a little. Unless, Chris, you think the other one is prettier, in which case you can have whichever one you want. One more scoop for each. It's a bit liquefied at this point because I left it out because also, since this technically is the mixer, I don't want it to be too hard to, I don't know, mix it, I guess. I don't want it to be too hard to mix it. All right, come on. Get out of there, you one scoop left. There we go. So yeah, there we go. So again, I'm a measure with your heart type of person, so if you would rather do this differently, by all means go ahead. Just gonna throw this ice cream back in here because it's been left out for about an hour. Hey, get in there. Get in there so I can actually close the door. All right, yeah, I just put in 3 tablespoons each for that. So next we have our Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey. Ooh. We have a little bottle. We're going to use the whole little bottle between both. Trying to keep it as even as possible, so that way it's not like one of us that's going crazy. Also, this is a cute little bottle, the Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey. It has a little bee on it. because it's honey. It's a bee. All right. Since also 'tis the season for pumpkin spice nonsense, we have Bailey's pumpkin spice limited edition cream. Ooh. And I have 2 little bottles of it because each drink is going to get 1 whole bottle. A glug, a glug, a gluggity glug. I said a glug, 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 gluggity glug. All right. Getting all of it out there that I can. Yes. The only great Tennessee export. All right. So that's in there. So that's what it's looking like right now with the Tennessee honey, the ice cream, and the Bailey's pumpkin spice. And then we have this pickle vodka. It's vanilla flavored to go with our little fall theme here. Oh, okay. And then I'm just gonna pour you in here. Amazing. Pour you in here. There's a lot in here. We're gonna die today. But you know what? The best interviews are the ones that I have no real filter on. So just glug it. Yes, just glug it. I measure in glugs. All right. So for a little extra fancy, we're gonna go back in with our whipped cream. I'm gonna go two-handed because I am not strong enough to do it one-handed. This one was looking a little sadder. Yeah, good enough. All right. I'm gonna have my prism powder from Fancy Sprinkles. I have the orange one, the orange flavor that was recently released as part of their Halloween palette. I'm just gonna put that all over. I'm gonna put it all over so much that it's 90%. That is a lot of vodka, yes. Oh, but it looks so cute, so it's fine. Final thing, I'm gonna take my Crasdale honey. We have talked about Crasdale before on the show, but it's almost the same, if not better, than usual store brands because they're made in the same factory. If you've been to Costco, you know what Crasdale is. Also, a lot of sea towns know it. All right, so all of that is done. Here's this pretty girl. Oh my God. She's covered in honey. She's covered in glitter. She's full of a lot of alcohol. I'm going to put you both in here like this. Ta-da. All right, I'm going to taste mine. It's strong, but it's good. It's like mighty. You know what I mean? Like, it's a drink that I feel like I probably, because there's a lot of calories going on here as well. It's a drink that I feel like maybe I shouldn't make a bacon or pierogies like I usually. Maybe just have a salad so my insides aren't very confused as to what's happening. But yeah, another big happy birthday to Chris. Oh, these are so pretty. All right, I'm gonna set these up as well as myself over by there to have some food over by my little kitchen area. And also plug in this phone that is streaming this because it is on 23% right now, and we have a whole interview to do after this. But please, while we are setting things up, please watch this lovely little preview of Gorilla Rep's recent film production of Macbeth. Cheers to me.
Who bid thee join with us?
Macbeth.
He needs not our mistrust, since he delivers our offices and what we have to do to the direction just.
Then stand with us. West your glimmers with some streaks a day. Now spurs a lady traveller apace to gain the timely inn, and near approaches the subject of our watch.
Hark! I hear horses.
Give us a light there. Oh.
'Tis he. The rest are within the note of expectation, already are in the court.
His horses go about.
Almost a mile, but he does usually. So all men do. From hence to the palace gate make it their walk.
A light! A light!
'Tis he.
Stand toot!
It will be rain tonight.
Then let it come down!
treachery. Fly, good Fleance. Fly, fly, fly. Thou mayest revenge. Oh, flame.
Who did strike out the light?
What's not the way?
There's but one down. The sun is fled.
We have lost best half of our affair.
Well, let's away and say what is done.
You know your own degrees. Sit. Down. At first and last, the hearty welcome.
Thanks to your majesty.
Thanks to your majesty.
Our self will mingle with society and play the humble host. Our hostess keeps her state, but in best time we will require her welcome.
Pronounce it for me, sir, to all our friends. For my heart speaks, they are welcome.
See, they encounter thee with their hearts. Thanks. Both sides are even. Here I'll sit in the midst, be large in mirth. Anon, we'll drink a measure the table round.
Hey.
There's blood on thy face.
'Tis banquos then.
'Tis better thee without than he within. Is he dispatched?
My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him.
Oh, thou art the best of the cutthroats, yet he is good. That did the like for Fleance. If thou didst it, thou art the nonpareil.
Most royal, sir. Fleance is escaped.
Then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect. Whole as the marble, founded as the rock, as broad and general as the casing air. But now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears. But Banquo's safe.
Aye, my good lord. Safe in a ditch he bides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head. The least a death to nature.
Thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies. The one that's fled hath nature, that in time will venom breed. No teeth for the present. Get thee gone. Tomorrow we'll hear ourselves again.
My royal lord, you do not give the cheer. The feast is sold that is not often vouched. While 'tis a making, 'tis given with welcome. To feed were best at home. From thence, the sauce to meat is ceremony. The meeting were bare without it.
Sweet remembrancer. Now, good digestion wait on appetite, and health on both.
May it please your majesty, sit.
Ah, here had we now our countries on a roofed, with the grace person of our Banquo present, who may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance.
His absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise. Pleased your highness to grace us with your royal company.
The table's full.
Here is a place reserved, sir.
Where?
Here, my good lord. What is it that moves your highness?
Which of you have done this?
What is it, my lord?
What, my good lord?
Thou canst not say, I did it!
Who bid thee join with us?
Macbeth.
We did an accidental little loop there because these drinks are very strong already. This is something that I have already seen, though, this show, and I'm very, very excited to please welcome Christopher of Guerrilla Rep Theater. Yes, Guerrilla Rep Theater. Woo, these are strong. Hello!
Hello. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
How are you doing
I'm
today?
well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Hey, I'm here. I'm doing great. I'm here. This is great.
You're here. That's amazing. That's
Right.
wonderful. We love it when a guest is here on time, ready to go. We do. We love it. But before we get into a whole lot of the ins and outs, so this show of yours, it's an actual film. It hasn't been like released for free out into the world. It's a film.
It has been.
Can you tell me a little bit about the process of deciding, because a lot of people right now in these days have decided to turn things into radio plays. So what was your process of not only picking this exact media for it, but also making it so that it was all close-ups? Like what was the decision behind that?
Well, it's a decision that I made in 2003 during the 3-year running production of Macbeth at Fort Tryon Park with Guerrilla Rep. And I know that's a damn long time ago. It's 17 years ago. And it's so long ago that even I had forgotten that I thought of it back then. But one of the lords, Bruce, who plays Ross, was in that production. And as I was chatting with him before we did some shooting, I said, I know I thought about this as long ago as 2011 because I tried that Kickstarter. And he's like, oh, no, my friend, you were talking about it in 2003 when we were doing it in the park. So I thought of it back then because Macbeth is a spooky play. And being right up in the actors' faces is an intensely spooky And I found as I shot the film a more and more psychological situation. It certainly puts the audience in the front row for every single word being spoken to directly, just like Shakespeare would have wanted. Of course, as we know, realism wasn't invented for hundreds of years after Shakespeare died. So he writes for this medium, and I wanted to, I guess the most direct answer I could tell you is that I wanted to make a film on Shakespeare's terms. I didn't want to sort of break down, change, or place Shakespeare in some different context.
That's awesome. So your focus mainly was the dialogue and the vibe of the show. Am I understanding that correctly?
The acting and the language. Yes.
The acting, of course, but like when it came to the actual process of like having everyone like full body and maybe interacting with each other versus just like here and here. Because,
well,
when I watched your show,
it's the acting. The answer,
all good close-ups.
The answer is the acting. And at the end of the day, film, I think, really very often shortchanges the acting. Film will often do things just to expedite for money's sake, or because they don't really know how to work with actors. And they won't really give the actors the things that they need to do the work on their terms. And brilliant actors such as these are all, SAG members, equity members, very experienced actors. They can all absolutely remember and duplicate what it is like to speak with and to each other after they have a rehearsal together, especially. So what I did is I tailored the process to get the actors together first via Zoom, which is, of course, as we've all now realized, tremendously compromised and difficult medium for theater, simply because the sound quality sucks, the visual quality sucks, and worst of all, there's this weird delay that makes it really hard to pick up cues the way that you have to in Shakespeare, and you certainly have to in most theater. So to answer your question, I didn't want to do a radio play because for me, the actors' faces are very essential to playing the action and really bringing across Shakespeare's story. The Macbeth, the world he creates is in our minds, and he creates it through his words. And so I wanted to have the actors, operate those words to tell that story and to create that world. So we worked together on Zoom to kind of get a flavor for what each other, brought to it and what we'd be working with. And then I went back and forth with the actors shooting just alone in their homes. And we often went back and forth with test shots and different shots. Sometimes I would read the other dialogue with them to sort of help, focus what they were doing. But at the end of the day, I would get it down to like maybe usually one, but sometimes 2 or 3 different shots that I wanted to have in the editing room from the individual actor, but I did it very much in relationship with them. And frankly, it was about the acting because it was about empowering the actor. Those guys didn't have to send me any footage. Like if they did a tape and they were like, wow, I really sucked on that one, they didn't send it to me. I never even saw it. They were collaborators in every real way, including ownership of the film. I don't know if you know this, but the actors own 50% of this film.
That's awesome.
Literally. And
that
also
thank
you. It's actually, I think at the time as I was discussing it with the actors, they were all like really nice about it. And we were also doing it as a SAG new media contract. So there was that basic pay going to happen. But I think they were all kind of humoring me a little bit, like, sure, we own the film. Thanks so much, But the thing is, we actually sold the educational premiere. It was a week of screenings through Hamilton College. And they bought it, and that was a payment to the actors. I took half that money and paid it to the actors along the shares that they own. And then they liked it so much, they upgraded it to premiere status so that they could, do a much better job of sending it out. So they'd have the original file and stuff like that, technical stuff. But that was a second payment. So I think that they're all a little bit amused that they've actually made a couple of additional payments from the ownership that I gave them.
That is fantastic. I love that you're taking care of your actors so much, not only in the quality of performance that they put out and making sure that they are happy with everything and they don't also have to like send you a file and all that stuff, but also that you are making sure that they get paid for this show. That is fantastic. I really, really like that. Thanks.
I'm glad you do, and I'm absolutely willing to pay, as everyone should be, for the high quality of performance. And I think that if COVID's going to do anything good, and I despise COVID, and I'm really sad that this is the situation under which I made the film. But when we got locked down here where I live, that was a Wednesday, and by Monday I was on production, because somewhere in there I just realized that all the actors I would want to work with on that close-up Macbeth that I've been trying to do for decades, were carrying around a high-quality camera in their pocket. Luckily, they started agreeing, and by the next week we were off to the races. And as I worked with them, and I worked in the kind of detail that I do in productions of Shakespeare that I've done in New York City, I sort of kind of realized, geez, maybe one good thing that the COVID will result in is a lot less bad theater.
Yeah.
That would be good. I mean, this whole thing, like, as theater people, we're always saying the magic of being there in person, the magic of being there in person. And then people show up and, it can suck if it's under rehearsed, if people don't know the meanings of the words that they're saying, if some director didn't really understand Shakespeare and so did a cutting that was actually sort of redoing Shakespeare in their sort of limited understanding of the story. And we're like, but fuck, it won't be interesting. We better place it in the Wild West or the fucking science fiction world,
Macbeth on the Moon. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great play. I think you should write Macbeth on the Moon, but the title of it should be Macbeth on the Moon, and it should be your play that you wrote, because that's what Shakespeare did, right?
That's true. That's true. Actually, I do have a play called I'm Your Hamlet, where we discuss we lightly discuss throughout the entire process every single bad Shakespeare show we have. And Macbeth on the Moon is mentioned.
It happens. I'm really hoping that something that the COVID, and I think COVID's going to last a lot longer than any of us really want it to. There's people keep talking and saying and trying to make each other feel better in denial, but the bottom line is there's no vaccine, and millions of people haven't gotten the vaccine. So until there's a vaccine and millions of people get it, I personally don't feel ethically correct in asking people to risk their health to have an entertainment in person. And I also feel like, well, if I can do a film that puts them in the front row seat, we're getting the same thing. And I'm hoping that COVID will result in a huge breakdown of a lot of artificial barriers between film production and theater. I mean, they're really not all that different. And I'm finding that the people who've shouted, theater is different, loud enough, are kind of one of two camps. They're either people who work on Broadway, where people get paid a reasonable amount of money to do theater, right? And by that, I mean reasonable. I have friends, and you do too, who are on Broadway. The basic starting salary for an actor on Broadway is $1,000 a week, which sounds great to an unemployed actor, but that's $50K a year, which, teachers make that, people make, that's not a huge amount of money. It's not like suddenly getting rich when you're on Broadway. It's just getting paid an adequate wage for doing the huge amount of work it takes. So what I'm hoping that we start seeing after COVID is a lot more people doing the theater piece and then doing a film based on that theater piece and capturing the choices that those actors made in a very filmic way. And certainly my film is not the precedent for that. Laurence Olivier, certainly played all of his parts on stage before he did them on film. And I think that the more that happens at a regional, drive it right down to the off-Broadway level, the more, motivation the actors have to put in the necessary work. And the more, the world gets more content. And frankly, the world's looking like it needs a lot more content. Bottom line is there's more ways to get stuff out there, more and more channels to do things. And I think that if we're really paying actors properly, even to do, that kind of theater at that level and to do it right, that it will be an extraordinary environment for new playwrights, because the artificial boundaries between playwriting and film writing just, they won't be there. So you can do the theater, get the film done, and people just feel like, wow, that's an amazing writer. Let's produce more of their work. Let's do another live production because the film is so well. God knows that happens all the time anyway. But why isn't it normal practice? And I'm hoping that after COVID, it becomes much more normal practice, and therefore much more obviously subtextually, that if you do a performance and you don't create a film of it because it's so easy and straightforward, that you're embarrassed because you did theater that sucks, and hopefully you'll go away. Not you personally.
I've been in those, so we've all been in those.
Yes, they make me want to hurt myself, so I try not to go anymore.
Yeah. So
Well,
you
it's,
talked a
you
little
know,
bit
look,
about your
I've been
casting
doing this
process.
for decades now. I mean, I'm, what is it, 34 years that I've been doing this, and I've had, you know, hundreds. I've literally worked with over 1,000 fantastic actors, and I've just had this experience over and over and over where, you know, an actor will walk up to me and they'll say something along the lines. I remember one guy said it this way. He said, "Christopher," I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "We're ready to open," and I'm like, and he's like, "Yeah, but it's 2 weeks until we open." I'm like, "Uh-huh." He's like, "What's up with that?" I'm like, "Now we put the polish on it. Now we're going to make it professional quality. This is New York City, motherfucker. We're going to make this as good as a Broadway show, or why the fuck are we doing it?" Right? And that's what makes Guerrilla Rep different.
Yeah, that is something that I always try to let my actors know, as well as anyone helping me produce it or something. Well, yes, it is indie theater, and we have a lot of indie theater going on. We also have a lot of competition all over the place, especially Broadway shows. We need to make it as good as the professionals, or else, like, why are we doing this? Why is anyone going to come see this? We want it to be good. We know that we have the talent to make it good, but let's just make it good.
Put the work in. That's exactly right. Go Slytherin. God damn
Go
it.
Slytherin. Yes.
We
We
put
are
the
both
goddamn work in, people. Sorry, we just do. All right. So, yeah.
So you talked a little bit about your casting process earlier, but would you mind walking me through that a little bit, especially for a show of this size, of this scale, with some celebrity status in it as well?
Well, my casting process is sheer goddamn luck, to be blunt. In this, I did mention that I worked with over 1,000 actors, and that kind of blows me away. And maybe I'm even underestimating. You know, at the very end of the film, very end. This is not a spoiler. In the credits, there's a picture of an actor. His name is Gregory Petrov, and you know, he was in literally. And this is the funny thing, because if he was in the room, I'd be like, "Wow, Greg was in over a dozen productions," and Greg would be like, 37. You know, so you know, some of the actors I've worked with over the years, when it worked, I've been privileged that they've been willing to work with me again. You know, it's the greatest compliment as a director I can get, is when a genius actor, you know, makes an amazing character and they're willing to make another one and another one. You know, I usually tell the actors, Jesus, if you've been in 3 of my shows, just call yourself a company member of Guerrilla Rep and we'll figure out what that means otherwise, because frankly, I don't really know. But yeah, pure luck. And in this case, it was luck that on the Wednesday that lockdown happened, I had planned a Friday Zoom reading of a film script that was going to be my first realistic film produced by someone other than me. I'm also a screenwriter. Oh, would you like a scoop? A script of mine is about to be a semifinalist in the Austin Film Festival playwriting contest.
Amazing!
And you heard it here first, folks.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Not publicly announced, but they said, "Hey, we're going to announce it, mid-October." And I'm just going to say this is mid-October, and you guys know. So anyway, it also, I mean, I like to let you know that too, now that I think of it, because I mean, why should you listen to an exclusively theater person talk about how there's no barrier between theater and film? I'm also, you know, I write film. I've been writing film and stuff like that. So what we were saying is, on Wednesday, the lockdown happened. The first time I used online stuff to help with a theater rehearsal was in 2009, when an actor missed his fucking flight. And so I put it on a Skype call. I put him on my laptop. I put it on the table and I said, "Do your job, folks." And they did. And I was like, okay, so much for the blah, blah, blah. We can use this all we want. I later rehearsed an entire show via Skype for Edinburgh 3 summers ago, I want to say. And then I sent my assistant director over to Edinburgh to do the actual staging in the park. It was not a very detailed staging, although he did a great job and people seemed to like it. So for me, the whole like using the internet to enhance theater rehearsals was kind of old. And so the funny thing is, everybody started busting out Zoom stuff, and I had this Zoom thing planned for 2 days after the lockdown, and I had planned it for 2 months. And the actors who had generously agreed to do that for a very small honorarium, I don't work with actors unless they're paid. But hey, I was paying it out of my pocket, so they were being nice to me, and they're all people I'd worked with before. So Wednesday happened, and the producer was like, "Well, I think we're going to go on hiatus here." And I was like, you know what I said? I said, "Motherfucker." And then I said, "All right, guys, you mind doing it anyway? Because I just haven't heard it, and I feel like such a goddamn fraud not having heard the piece spoken by brilliant actors." They all agreed. So on Friday we did it, and then it was scratching my head, and I think it was the very next day, the guy who plays Duncan was in that reading, and I was like, he's a close friend, and I love him dearly, and I was like, you know, man, that old Macbeth idea, maybe I'm crazy, but he's like, you are fucking crazy. There's no two ways about that, my man, but I think you're onto something. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, would you play Duncan? He's like, sure, I would. So I was like, wow, okay. Suddenly, all these brilliant actors I know are unemployed, have nothing to do, and have a very high quality camera in their pockets. Let's try to do Macbeth. So of course I called Leggero, and again, luck, right? Because Leggero and we go back in 2011, we worked on a show together when I was the executive director at Kentucky Rep. And it was a very difficult show. It was a trial by fire. It went to hell a couple of different ways, and we pulled it out of hell together, you know? And so, you know, those are the bonds that just don't break. And since then, actually, we've been more writing partners. You know, I had dramaturg for him on a couple things. He and I wrote a graphic novel together, you know, but I was like, hey, man, you know, and I told him about the idea, called him up, and he's like, now you realize that the first time you mentioned Macbeth to me as a role was when we were working together in 2011, because you were shocked that I hadn't done any Shakespeare and you thought I should do a Macbeth monologue. And I was like, well, okay, I'll take credit for that. One of the great things about being absent-minded is sometimes, you know, you're shocked that you've had great ideas in the past. And luckily for me, like after I described the whole process and what I wanted to do with it, and of course that it would be SAG, you know, and that we would do it right, he agreed, you know, and in short order, I got lucky that a playwriting student of mine here at the Downtown Writers Center in Syracuse, who wrote a wonderful full-length play, was also the owner and operator of a film studio. You know, she's a genius young woman. She's a genius, Lisa Barron Ray. And what she decided to do was bag film school, do high-end wedding videos, and then with the profits, make her own films and learn how to make a film by actually doing it, right? So I'm, you know, look at that. Initiative, brilliance, ability, a clever plan, Slytherin all over it. So of course we got along. And I was like, I know this is crazy, but would you think about editing it and doing cinematography for it? And she agreed. So suddenly we were off to the races. I just started asking actors who I felt, you know, and in the process, I will say, it's not like the most, you know, airy fairy happy bappy the whole thing, because a couple of the actors that I got in touch with were like, what? You want me to what? Dude, it's a plague. My kids are stuck at home. I've got to start online teaching. Like, okay, yeah, no. And I was like, okay, I'm glad we have a relationship in which we can be honest. So, you know, but luckily I got to people who, many of whom had been in many of my productions, and they sort of knew the deal. They knew that I would keep trying to work on it until either it defeated me, you know. I wouldn't give up, and I didn't give up. And thank God, neither did they. We had two whole families in the film. I don't know if you noticed that. Two whole families of actors, including my family. And then one of those families lost their grandfather to COVID during the goddamn shooting. And another guy lost his father during the shooting too. And in both cases, one of the actors, I'm not going to point fingers, but one of the actors that this happened to just took a deep breath and looked at me and he said, no, this is a balm. I need to do this too. He would want me to do this. And I'm like, all right, trooper with a capital T, right? So I just kept going. And I have done casting for films. As a casting director, I have a Breakdown Express account. I know the drill. I'm happy to do it. I had written all the stuff up. I was ready to post it and do the callbacks via video and do the whole nine. I just ended up getting all the way to the point where I wanted a couple of actual children, right? And like, for instance, for Macduff's kid who speaks, I wanted a kid. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. I think I know people. And in the case of Macduff and Hecate are married. Sean and Rohanna are married. They've both been in a billion Girl Rep shows, and they have two kids who are Fleance and Banquo's child. That's a whole family. And isn't that crazy? And here's the last crazy story about casting. Okay, got all the way down to 29 of 30 roles were cast, and one I could not cast it to save my life. You know, it reminded me of the time I did King Lear. in Washington Square Park, and that was the second time that Ben Brantley reviewed my work, but it was the first time he was the head critic, right? Really made my bones on that. I could not cast Burgundy to save my life because I needed an actor who was really strong and could stand up to Lear, right? But then wasn't in the whole rest of the play and then came out for the curtain call. So I had actor after actor was like, I love it, I'll do it unless I get something else better. Oh wait, I got a commercial. Oh wait, I got another play. You know, so what the hell can you do? In this case, it was the what I call the doctor of theology, right? The English doctor who just has that one little monologue where she talks about King John's, you know, miraculous healing power, right? And so, and this is the funny thing, you know, Macduff has to have at least 2 kids, even though only one of them talks, because they're constantly saying children were killed, children. So it has to be 2. So I took shots of my 3-year-old and spliced them into the scene so that at least it was more than 1 kid. That's Max, my son. It's his first IMDb credit, right? Right? So then Doctor of Theology. And I was like, wait a minute, fuck me. My wife has basically a doctorate of theology. My wife went to seminary at fucking Columbia, you know? She's a genius preacher, and you know there's some acting going on in great preaching, right? And I was like, hey, Meredith, yeah, it's okay if you say no or anything. You know, I like to think we have a relationship where we can be honest, but I was wondering if you might like playing the doctor of theology, right? So she looked it over, and that wonderful, beautiful woman with the cross playing the doctor of theology is my wife. So our whole family's in it too.
That's amazing. That's so awesome.
So yeah, that's the crazy story of casting. I was 100% ready to go on Actors Access and Breakdown Express, which for me are the only professional tool for casting. So if any actors are watching and they're thinking about getting cast in legit stuff, especially if you have an agent who does commercial, get on Actors Access, because, you know, I would say the majority of people who pitch for me on Actors Access are have agents for film and for film and television and commercials, but they don't have a legit agent, and their current agents don't want to pitch them for theater, so they pitch themselves through Actors Access. Actors Access is not a bunch of wannabe people who just got off the bus. Although, hey, that's great too. Guerrilla Rep has been plenty of really great actors. First real professional credit in New York, and I'm very proud of that. I'm actually really proud of my casting. You know, if there's one thing I feel sets me apart as a director, it's casting.
It was a really, really fantastic show. My tech and I, we watched it the entire time. We watched the full thing, and we were like, this is also the most like fast-paced Macbeth we've ever seen. Like, we're not bored at all. That's primarily a lot of acting.
Boring.
Some very good editing choices as well, but really, actors were top-notch in it.
Thank you. Thank you. I really pride myself on working with great, great actors. And again, luck, right? Lucky that they're willing to work with me. And I'll tell you something about that pace. If you really want a pro tip, I actually have used a little bit of that our science to figure out something really important about Shakespearean pacing, if you're interested.
I'm very interested, yeah.
Well, people have said that about my work for decades, that the pace was really, really fast. A couple of the New York Times reviews are like, you know, in fact, the review of our Macbeth called it roller coaster, right? And that's interesting to me because I always thought I was doing it the way Shakespeare wanted me to do it. And it's like, well, why, Christopher? Were you channeling Shakespeare? Is it some kind of bullshit like that? And I'm like, no. No, like really specifically, when the actors really, really picked up the pace and thought, and this is the thing, when they spoke at the speed of thought, and then they didn't put in pauses because of the iambic pentameter, but they caught each other's like right on the beat and spoke at the speed of thought, it made those intelligent thoughts flow better. And also, I was always like, you know, when you're really excited about telling somebody something and you really like that person, you don't speak slowly, you speak really quickly. Like if your best friend, right, wants to know what's going on, you just like go at them, you know? And it worked, and it worked, and it worked, and it worked. And then suddenly I found myself directing Romeo and Juliet. And, the prologue says 2 hours traffic of our stage. And I thought, well, this is the time to put your money where your mouth is, man, because I was directing it as if I had a frame story, which I don't do much, but I thought this was a lot of fun. My frame story was a sophomore Catholic school girls English class had decided got so excited about Romeo and Juliet that they decided to do the whole thing uncut, right? And they drafted their nun, who was the teacher, to do the prologue and to play the nurse, right? So the body all had a double, you know, it was a nurse saying, like a nun saying all that body stuff. And so all the girls were like twittering away as well. But other than that, we played it dead straight, you know, dead straight. And the set was the classroom. So there was these blackboards, right? So as the nun said, 2 hours traffic of our stage, I had one of the girls, they were all college age, of course, run out and literally write down the actual time, you know, 8:04, right? And then at the very end, as the prince was saying the last lines, she said the last word, the same girl looked at her watch and wrote the time. And it was literally 2 hours, with give or take 4 minutes, one way or the other, every goddamn performance. That's when I said, science, you know, science, because there's X number, right? Shakespeare says this play is supposed to last 2 hours. And if it doesn't, you're fucking doing it wrong. So I simply counted the number of words, divided them by 2 hours. And then I got this very rough kind of thumbnail, or, you know, rule of thumb, let's say, of how many, you know, words per time. So all you have to do is plug in the amount of words in the Shakespeare play, and this will automatically give you a rough estimate, you know, within a few minutes of how long your play should be, unless you're doing it wrong. Yeah, so my Hamlet was uncut, and it ran 2 hours and 36 minutes, give or take a few minutes.
And it flew by, honestly, the Macbeth that I saw.
Thank you. The truth is, I let him get away with more pauses than I do in live, because I felt like right there in the face we could add a little more variety of rhythm than we did, and so I'm saying I learned something too. But I'm glad they liked that, because I think it's really important you got to stay ahead of everybody, and you got to pull them along by their nose hairs. You know, let them think afterwards. I always say that the fifth act of any play should be the cafe, or afterwards, or the bar, or the car ride home. You know, let them think when they can talk about it with their friends. The meantime, we're supposed to be
at Denny's in their old age makeup, harassing the wait staff. Let them talk about it then slowly. So yeah, one other question I have about Macbeth specifically. So you're looking to option it as a film. Can you tell me the reasonings behind that, and also why you think it's necessary?
Well, we're gonna get a distribution deal together. You know, we showed it. It was when it went through Hamilton College, the industry decided that was the educational premiere. But luckily for us, because COVID and everything's fucking crazy, actually, it was really, in some ways, it was the world premiere, because anyone could see it through that streaming. Like, that streaming was far and wide, and we had people from all over the place, not just from Hamilton's audience, which resulted in a fantastic test audience for us. Right? These are people who don't know me, don't know Guerrilla Rep, and they're just interested in, they're maybe our alumni of Hamilton, or, you know, interested for one reason or another. And so I gave a little bit of an introduction at the beginning of each screening. Then we had a major talkback, and the result was beyond my expectation, beyond my imagining. People really got it. They loved it. And I was like, okay, we need to get a real distribution deal and get it out to the world. So since that time, I've been pretty much getting a graduate degree in how to get a distribution deal for a film, and starting to line up what the second Guerrilla Rep film will be in this aesthetic, super close up. And that means going to the American film market, which is in November, which is the big market. And it also means entering a lot of festivals. So over October, we'll find out. See, we completed at the end of July, which is a little weird for, I guess, film people. When they can complete, they like to complete kind of in the spring, because most of the deadlines, you know, are over the early spring and summer. But we made some deadlines, and we'll see what we get into. We were in time to enter the Berlinale. So if, you know, no one else, maybe the Germans will understand what I'm up to. And at the end of the day, you know, film distribution has changed so much that there's a couple of deals that I already have that I can just put on hold, because there's no guaranteed minimum, and it's just they're kind of a marketing service, and they kind of like pass through for a 20%, 80% split. And if, you know, if nothing else, you know, early next spring, we'll toss that onto one of those, and you know, complete the second film. You know, in some ways, I feel like it may be that, like, we finish 2, 3, 4, even 5 of these films, and one of them really suddenly takes off for whatever crazy reason stuff takes off, and then the back catalog will also get, you know, sort of the wave of interest and inspiration. And, you know, we got our first review and it was a rave, and the guy actually got what we were doing. And, you know, the more of those we can put together, the more attention we'll get on this, and the more of these films we'll make.
Awesome. I would definitely love to see more. Absolutely. And yes, congratulations from Bridget, New York. Also, we skipped over this because we were talking, but Ricky, one of the reviewers who's reached out to you, did say that it was a very ballsy move on your choice. So,
well, you know, so was doing Henry V for Kenneth Branagh. You know, it was so incredibly successful that people forget that, you know, there was no guarantee that that was going to work at all. He was very much of a newcomer. He was an up-and-comer, certainly. But at the time, he convinced the powers that be to give him the money to make that. There was, I mean, it could have been forgotten, you know. But because it was new, and in the reasons that it was new, it took off. And Shakespeare in film tends to do that. There are these cycles where someone will do something that's unheard of or really ballsy, like Orson Welles or Kurosawa or whatever, and then suddenly everybody will want to do it, and it'll be, you know, interesting. And you know, the simple fact is that Shakespeare is evergreen, and there are audiences for this Macbeth 100 years from now. The words aren't going to change. The power of the performances is not going to change. So it's a very long-term proposition in terms of the value as well, which, you know, I hope isn't too technical, but I also think is really wonderful about Shakespeare.
awesome. That's so fantastic. One fun thing that I always need to ask every single interview that I have on the show. We all have our Shakespeare horror stories. We all have them. One of my favorite ones of me was a Midsummer Night's Dream, where I was asleep as Titania on stage outdoors in a park. We only had to do one outdoor performance though, because the rest of them got rained out when we were in an indoor space. So we didn't get to like test out the area. And as I was asleep on this big, it actually was like a foundation of an old building. Spiders were crawling all over my face, and I had to find a way to like get them off of me without waking up or scaring the rest of the actors on the stage.
Man,
that's one of mine. I'm sure you have a ton, but what's one or two of your favorites?
Well, I will tell you, I have fewer than you might think, because Guerrilla Rep has what's called cut procedure. And when we work outside, I want any actor who's thinking more about their safety than about the story to shout "cut" really loud. I jump in like a rodeo clown, and it's usually some drunk guy like fucking with us, and I usually look at him and I say, "We had auditions. Where were you?" And then the whole audience laughs, right? And then the drunk guy realizes, "Oh my God, I'm screwing this up for 600 people, not just this person I'm trying to screw with." And they usually wander away. So we've managed to avoid a lot of problems by an actor just saying "cut," and I'm like, "Hey, what's the problem? Okay, we're dealing with it." And there are famous exceptions to that, the Maglite incident being one of them. But the Maglite incident might be my worst Shakespeare nightmare. But really, for me as a director, the bigger nightmare was a week before my Hamlet at the Cloisters opened. Really, literally 7 days. And you know, at the end of the story is we got this rave New York Times review. People were packed. It was amazing. You know, come on, the Cloisters were starring as Elsinore. We had fantastic cast. It was, you know, and a really neat way of lighting it, and it all really worked. But 7 days before, it looked like it was completely fucked, because 7 days before, one of the actors in it had a stroke. I had to ride with him in the ambulance from rehearsal. That was our Rosencrantz at the time. And then 2 days after that, Gertrude broke her leg trying to get down subway stairs a little bit too fast. And then 2 days after that, the guy who was playing 8 different small roles decided, no, he really did need to get back to Westchester to get a summer job for a few weeks before school. So at each of those moments, you know, I thought, well, I'm going to let it defeat me. I'm not going to stop trying. So we did manage to recast Rosencrantz, and the guy playing Guildenstern, who was actually Bruce Barton, who played Ross in Macbeth, he knew all of his partner's lines. So for the first couple of performances, he was feeding him lines or just stealing his lines when he went up, and it worked flawlessly. We got another Gertrude. She came in like a trooper. She did a great job. And the woman playing Gertrude, who broke her leg, came in with a cast on to help teach her blocking, you know? So lucky that I just worked with such fabulous people. And then we had 2 other actors who were taking small roles. And I sort of took in, after this guy told me this, I sort of took in a deep breath as he walked away. And the other 2 actors walked up to me. And right before I could, you know, exhale and say, you know what I was going to say, right? The other 2 actors were like, we got all his parts covered. We already divided them up between ourselves if you're cool with that. And I was like, I'm cool with that. And then we did a run through and they were genius. They were wonderful. They're both, you know, highly successful professional actors these days. And I think that was one of their first New York, you know, credits. So that was a goddamn nightmare, one on top of the other. In fact, it was so bad that at one point I looked at the guy playing Hamlet, Christopher Gottschalk, and I said, you know how you said you always wanted to jump out of an airplane? If we get through this shit, the week after we open, I'm paying for us to jump out of a fucking airplane. So Christopher looks at me and he says, hey man, you know how the logo for this production is a skull, but it's a little weird looking because it's actually a gorilla skull? Like, yeah, he's like, you know how you've been talking about getting that tattooed on your shoulder? And I was like, yeah. He's like, we get through this, I'm getting that too, and I'm paying for both of us to get that fucking tattoo. And I was like, word, brother, you're on. So me and Hamlet ended up jumping out of an airplane, and we both ended up with this giant gorilla skull tattooed on our shoulders. But it was kind of a nightmare until it was over.
Listen, we love a good nightmare that ends up in a bonding experience.
Amen. It's been so delightful to be with you today. I'm really, really, really grateful. Again, so lucky that you found me.
So when it comes to creating work for this pandemic world that we are not going to get out of anytime soon, do you have any advice for either new companies that have been created for this specific medium, or for anyone who has been around for a while but doesn't have the same experience as you do with the Skype rehearsals and all of that stuff?
Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Make a film. Forget Zoom. Forget it. Leave it to the improv guys. Let them work with the delays and the bad images. No offense to the improv guys. Improv actors are fabulous, fabulous people. I cast them all the time.
We're okay.
I cast them. They do better Shakespeare. They're great. It's not my cup of tea, but they're fantastic. That said, do it on film. Make the film. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from them, and then retake the scene. Like learn and learn and learn, and then get the film out the door and make another one. The thing to do right now in the coronavirus is to make films. Make films. Get a lavalier mic or 2. Buy some clip-on lenses for your iPhone. You know, do what you need to do. Do it outdoors and do it theatrical style, and have a drone fly through the whole thing doing one long take. Whatever it is you think's going to work, man, do it. Do that. Use this time to make something that's going to make theater better when the COVID virus is over. And I'm sorry, but Zoom readings aren't going to do that. But learning how to make films from your brilliant show that people love is going to make theater itself better. Please do that.
A very good message. That's fantastic. And I hope everyone who's watching is listening to that right now, because that is some real, true, hard facts. Just do the thing anyway, learn as much as you can, and just create something fantastic. Is there anything that you would like make theater better? Trademark. Thank you, sour grapes. Wonderful. Is there anything that you would like anyone who's watching, or anyone who watches this later, to know about your show specifically that we haven't covered?
Well, the weird thing, yes, there's one thing I would say is I hope that when they watch it and enjoy it, that they also don't let it blow the idea that it's a film out of their heads, because it is a film. And believe it or not, there are Easter eggs and references to other films in it. And I think it's easy to think in retrospect, oh, well, it was all in close-up. It was even an extreme close-up. You know, it must be its own thing. It must not be related to other films. But it really is. There's at least one Monty Python reference in there, Blade Runner reference in there. There's some significant dialogue with other films in there, even other Shakespeare films. So I would say if I was one thing I wanted to ask people, it's if you see it and it affects you intensely, think about watching it again, because I think there's more to offer there too.
Awesome. I love that. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
When you get your other films done, of course, in the same style, please, I would love to have you back on.
It's a date.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. You too. Bon appetit.
I finished my salad. This, though, is a beast to get through. Woo!
That's a meal in itself.
It really is.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, that was so fun. I love a guest that really knows exactly what they're talking about, because then also if I'm way too plastered from this drink that I've made, they can just interview themselves. No, I really thank you so much, Christopher, for being on talking about your show. And really, I do love, I keep calling it iPhone Macbeth, but the close-up Macbeth, it is super fast-paced. It is very good for people who don't know Shakespeare either, because like it's so fast and so good that like you know exactly what's happening at all times. But yeah, really just reach out to Christopher about where it's playing next and all of that fun stuff. And any reviewers watching this, of course, if you haven't reached out already about watching the piece, please reach out. So coming up next week, of course, because I have a little nepotism on my side, because this is my show and I can do what I want. The next week, next Sunday, we have I'm Your Hamlet. No, I will not be sitting here interviewing myself or having the devil puppet that always joins me talking to me about this, which for anyone who's already seen I'm Your Hamlet, you know that he makes quite an appearance. But I'm going to have some other cast members from the show talking about the whole process of filming, all of that wonderful stuff. Yes, GorillaRepTheater.com is where you should go for information about not only Gorilla Rep Theater as general, but the Macbeth film that they recently filmed. But yeah, I'm Your Hamlet is going to be next week. If we could get some banner information up about that. And yeah, we're going to be talking about some of the cast members, about not only the filming process, the lack of rehearsal process that I made them go through for that, because we were all just starting to come out of pandemic world. Like, we're still in pandemic world, but at the same time, we were just starting to feel like maybe we can create something. I don't know. Let's have fun. And it was a very fun time. It premiered at the 2020 So Many Shakespeare's Festival, which I run because nepotism. And it was written specifically for that festival because when we were still planning to do that festival this year, it was supposed to be an IRL festival, but of course all those plans went to pot. And every time I tried to adapt the show that I had already planned and written for the In Real Life festival, it wasn't working for a virtual scale. So in the cyberspace world, I had to, in basically 8 hours, write a whole new show and then cast it with amazing actors that I've used before, who you are going to meet next Sunday. And they are all hilarious and wonderful. And we are going to talk about them all next Sunday. And I'm gonna be so fangirling out over these people that I know and are my friends and I've worked with before, but that's because they're just so good in this film. But it's going to be at the 2020 Hartford Fringe Festival, opening October 9th, running through November 9th. That's right, an entire month. You can buy a ticket to see the show, and you'll see it, and it'll be a great time. So if you missed it during the review coming out tonight for iPhone Macbeth, I'm so excited to read it. Okay. Also, just a big shout out to Dana and Ricky. You guys have been so spectacular for reviewing all of the Frigid New York stuff. We really, really appreciate you. We talk about y'all almost every single staff meeting we have. So thank you so much for being so on board with watching our pieces that we produce and all of that fun stuff. We love you both. Thank you so much for actually paying attention to us. We love attention is what we're saying. Speaking of attention, it's time for my closing monologue, everybody. Hello. We could switch on over to the credits to keep with the Falstaff theme. I'm going to be reading something from the Merry Wives of Windsor. I can just also stand here. Yes, great. Amazing. All right. What? Have I escaped love letters in the holiday time of my beauty and am now subject for that? Let me see. Ask me no reason why I love you, for though love used reason for his physician, he admits him not for his counselor. You are not young. No more am I. Go to them. There's sympathy. You are merry, so am I. Ha ha! Then there's more sympathy. You love sack, and so do I. Would you desire better sympathy? Let it suffice thee, Mistress Page. At least if the love of soldier can suffice, that I love thee. Oh, I will not say pity me, 'tis not a soldier-like phrase. But I say love me. By me, thine own true knight, by day or night, or any kind of light, with all his might. Okay, bit of a stretch. For thee to fight, John Falstaff. Oh, wicked world. Okay. One that is well nigh worn to pieces with age to show himself a young gallant. Oh, what an unweighed behavior hath this Flemish drunkard picked with the devil's name out of my conversation, that he dares in this manner to assail me. Why, he hath been thrice in my company. What can I say to him? I was then frugal in my mirth. Oh, heaven forgive me. Why, I'll exhibit a bill in the Parliament for the putting down of men. How shall I be revenged on him? For revenged I will be, as sure as his guts are made of puddings.